Welcome back and thank you for being with us. This is Khalil Hashim with the Local Connections. As you well know, the holidays are here. Next week is uh, uh, Thanksgiving, and then this month rather, and then next we're gonna get to Christmas. And these are the times we're happy, we're with friends, we're with everybody. However, we are still vulnerable. We need to be vigilant. From history, crimes spike a little bit during the time of the holidays. And with us this morning is First Lieutenant Mike Shaw of the State Police, Public Information Officer of the Michigan State Police. Good morning,
Good
Lieutenant Shaw.
morning, sir.
Thank you so much for being with us. Is it true that more crimes take place during the holidays, or those crimes that are related to safety?
I think it is true to some respect, just because we kind of let our guard down. It's the happy season, and we're all going about our business, doing a lot of things. But there are things you can do every day to make it safer for you, and those things are even better during the holiday season to do, just to keep you safe. Make sure nobody's stealing your packages, or following you around, or doing anything that might be interpreted as a little bit scarier than other times.
Absolutely. What are these things? First, let's talk on the physical aspect. Then we can talk online. The physical aspect. What can we do to protect
Yeah.
ourselves?
So first thing, you said it right off the gate, is to be vigilant. And we talk about that with everything. It used to be, we talked about different things, but when we started to talk about, terrorism, international or domestic, or, be vigilant. If you see something, say something. But that kind of goes for all crime, right? If you're going out there and you see something suspicious, and that's the word that always gets people. It's like suspicious. Wow, what does suspicious mean? And what it means is, we've all had that feeling where the hair on the back of your neck kind of stands up, and you're looking at something. You're like, man, something's just not right. Trust your gut.
Sure.
If that's the case, you see somebody and you're coming out of the mall or one of your favorite stores, as you're walking out, you see somebody standing by your car, and they just give you that vibe that, what, that person is not, male or female, is not somebody that, I think is up to anything good around my car. Don't be afraid
Excellent.
to walk back in the store and say, hey, can somebody walk me out? It's not, it's not that you're afraid, or that you're asking for help or asking to inconvenience somebody. It's just that you see something that's not up to par.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I always say, and that's with everything, right? If you go to the movies, look to see where the fire exits are there a lot of fires in the movie theaters? There's not. But if there is one, you sure want to know how to get out of there. So
Ab-
it's not a bad idea to kind of be vigilant as you go along. Second
Absolutely.
thing is inside your car. If you're going to do a lot of shopping, a lot of people try to knock out all that shopping all at once for whatever holiday it may be, or just on a daily basis. Lock that stuff in your trunk. Don't leave it out there and make it where the bad person walks by, or the criminal walks by and says, oh wow, there's some stuff in that car. I'm going to break a window, steal it, and be out of here.
It's like an invitation.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it always sounds bad, but you want them to pass you up to go find somebody else, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I hope it doesn't happen to anybody, but you want to make sure that, because criminals are opportunists. They are going to take the opportunity of whatever. The final thing is, if you are parking in those areas, is just make sure you're in a lighted area. Again, you want to make your car like the hardest target for somebody to break into. Because if it's lit up, or if you're paying attention, and don't be on the phone, and don't, you're walking with a purpose, like you're going to somewhere, a criminal more than likely is going to pass you up for an easier target.
Absolutely. And that goes without saying, lock up your car.
Absolutely. You'd be amazed how many times that we get called out to a house or somewhere and say, oh, somebody broke into my car, or I can't find my iPhone that I left on the dashboard, or my iPad that was in the back seat, but my keys were in the ignition and I didn't lock the door. Well, nobody deserves to get their stuff stolen, but again, you don't want to give an opportunist the opportunity. And you'd be surprised how many times we do roll up on stolen cars or things like that,
Absolutely.
where that actually happens.
Yeah. I mean, even at homes, I'm always surprised when I go visit people and I look at their first floor windows. Most of them they're closed, but they're not locked. And I say, somebody could get in easily. Why don't you lock them? Oh, it's safe. Well, don't take that chance,
We all want to think that we live in the safest community anywhere, right? Our neighborhood, we know all of our friends and stuff like that. And things have kind of changed. I'm a little bit older, so I remember, the old nosy neighbor that used to look outside and know what everything was happening in the neighborhood. They knew every car, they knew everything that was going on. Those days have kind of changed, that there's not that person anymore. But it's okay for you to be that person. Take a look, and if something strange happened in the neighborhood, don't be afraid to call the police and say, hey, I saw this person. Now, it's not every person that you don't recognize that's walking down the street, right? Again, it's that feeling that you get, if you see somebody just walking their dog down the street, they're probably not looking to break into houses. If you see somebody peeking in your neighbor's window, yeah, that might be somebody that you want to call. But yes, for sure, lock those windows. And when you're at home, we kind of don't think about it often, but as soon as you walk in the house, don't be afraid to close the front door and lock it. I mean, even
Absolutely.
while you're home, just to make sure that nobody goes and just walks into your house even while you're there. So you want to make sure that the bushes around your house are kind of neatly trimmed so people can see the window. You want to make sure that you have lights on, porch lights, things like that, that kind of make it, again, they pass your house by for an easier target.
Absolutely. Now, all what we're talking about is even especially more important for women when they're by themselves shopping. They need to be even more vigilant and ask for security if they feel like they need somebody to walk them to their car. Isn't that true?
That is very true. And again, the biggest thing is to look confident. Uh, if I think we all do it when we're all looking around and stuff like that. We know what people are doing. We kind of see what they're doing. Well, criminals are doing the same thing. They're addressing people as they walk through the crowd and stuff like that. So if you have somebody, man or woman, because I've seen on both sides, we're as guilty as ladies are. Where you got your hands are full with bags. You got one hand on the cell phone that you're kind of looking or talking or texting to somebody, and you're not even looking out to see what's going around you. It would take nothing to run by you, grab the bags out of your hand, and do that. So go out there and remain vigilant. And I'll say it numerous times through this interview. Don't be talking on the phone. Don't be doing any of that kind of stuff. And kind of aware of your surroundings. And if you
Absolutely.
want to walk you out, stores have loss prevention officers in every store that are more than willing to walk you out to your car. And you know what? If it turns out to be nothing, then it was nothing. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we live in a difficult time in America when it comes to mass shootings, and these could happen anywhere. I'm out there at the mall, I'm out there shopping, and I hear shootings. What should I do?
so there's an edict out there: run, hide, fight. There's other methods that they talk about. There's Alice training. There's different companies that have different things. We kind of run with the run, hide, fight type of training because I think it's the easiest to remember. So if you're actually involved in an active shooter incident where you hear gunshots, the first thing you want to do is get out of there, run. I mean, if your friend won't run with you, or they run, you got to get out of there. The second one, if you have no way to go, and this is again talking about knowing where your exits are and things like that, find a good place to hide. If you can find under the desk, mute out your cell phone. Find a place tucked in. A lot of stores have gates over them that when an active shooter situation happens, the stores are automatically going to close those gates down. So if you can get into one of those stores before they do that, that's another option there as well. And then the last one, if you're stuck and there's nowhere to go and the shooter's coming towards you, then you got to fight with everything you have. Like your life depends on it, because it does. And there's no such thing as a fair fight. You use whatever you absolutely can to defend yourself, from a chair to a fire extinguisher, to a thumb in the eye, to whatever it takes to take that person down.
Yep.
Now, if you hear about an incident or somebody talks about something that you think doesn't seem right, report it to your local police. We're seeing a lot of this now. We're seeing threats in our schools that come across written on the wall, or somebody will say something online or things like that. And even with some of the school shootings that we're seeing now, that there were some opportunities for the community to stop this event before it happened if they just would have told somebody. And
Absolutely.
I get it. Yeah, we're all, nobody wants to be that person, right? Right. You
Yeah.
don't want to be wrong. You don't want to be the one that says, oh, I think that person's going to commit a crime. I better call the police. And then you turn out to be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd rather be wrong 1,000 times. Walk up there, interview the person, find out that it was a misunderstanding and go about our business. Then go back to a lot of these shootings that we're seeing and say, man, we could have stopped it here. We could have stopped it here. We could have stopped it here. And finally it happens.
Yeah.
So
When it's too late.
when it's too late, then it actually happened, and we're investigating it. So
Yeah.
if you see something suspicious or you think something just isn't right, don't be afraid to call the police. You're not a snitch. You're not a tattletale. You're not anything. You're just a concerned citizen making sure that your community is safe, working with us.
Yeah. And before I ask you about online, I just want to make sure that we cover the driving aspect. It seems that near the holidays, people get crazy with driving, and some people are drunk, and some people trying to get to a sale very quickly. It's just not worth it. What are your recommendations?
So we've seen, and this is not just during the holidays. This has been about the last 2 or 3 years now. I call them the big three, so to speak. One is excessive speed, and we're not talking about people that are doing 5 miles over the speed limit. We're talking people that are doing 20, 25, 30 miles an hour over the speed limit. Our troopers are regularly finding people driving on the freeways at in excess of 100 miles an hour. If you lose control of your car at that speed, you're going to either kill yourself or somebody else. So that's one of the first ones that we talk about. The second one is following too closely. And that's one I always refer back to the Southfield Freeway for me, that you'll notice that people, for some reason, think everything is a NASCAR race. And the closer you get to the bumper of the person in front of you, you can kind of draft them along. Well, as soon as that person taps the brakes, you're either going to do two things. You're going to swerve and hit somebody else, or you're going to rear end that person, especially at those excessive speeds. And then the last one, of course, is distracted driving. There's so many things going on in our cars now that sometimes you just gotta drive. And I have a saying, "Get your head out of your app." Is what I tell people is your phone has nothing to do with driving. If
Yeah.
you use your GPS, that's great. Program your GPS directions in there, put it in its stand, and then just let it talk to you. But you got to concentrate on driving. Those are the big things that we're seeing. And then we always talk about impaired driving, and we talk about alcohol, but we need to talk about marijuana now.
Yeah.
Marijuana, we're seeing it, a lot more in impaired driving cases. Where people think for some reason it was kind of the same with alcohol that we kind of saw at the beginning there in the 50s and 60s where I can have a couple and I'll be okay. People think that about marijuana right now. I can smoke a couple of joints and I'll be okay. There's way too many options out there to get the behind the wheel impaired. You
Yeah.
can Uber, taxi cab, get a piggyback ride from your friend. We don't really care how you do it. Just don't get behind the wheel.
Yeah. Generally speaking, one beer could impair somebody, their judgment to a point where they could get into an accident, or one joint could do the same, isn't it?
Mhm. It is true. So alcohol and marijuana is kind of measured differently. So alcohol has a per se limit. So in Michigan, if you're 0.08 or above, or if you're under 21, 0.02 and above, you're automatically considered impaired. That's the law. That's what your blood alcohol content is, whatever. Marijuana doesn't have a set period, but it's the impairment aspect of it. So a lot of things we'll look for, and we've never made it a secret. And people see it on the road before we do, and they call us. If you have one joint and you pull up to a green light and you stop, you're probably under the influence of marijuana. You're having some trouble. And if you're weaving in your lane or you fall asleep behind the wheel. So everybody's different on that aspect. So we look at the impairment process of it. If you ran somebody's car and they find out later on in your blood results that you have THC in your system, that's going to lead to you probably getting, impaired driving charges against you. So we all know ourselves. For me personally, for one, I am a state trooper. I'm supposed to do the right thing all the time, every time. One beer, I don't get behind the wheel. You can take an Uber, you can do so many different things. We just ask people to make a plan ahead, because if you go somewhere and then you start drinking or smoking or whatever it is that you do, it's super hard to make a.
Sorry about that.
Nope, that's okay. So if if you're drinking or you're smoking or whatever, it's hard to make a good sound decision once you're already impaired. So if you're going to a holiday party and you decide I'm going to have a couple of adult beverages at that holiday party, then before you even leave, you should think to yourself, how am I going to get home? And that's the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. Lastly, online, what do we need to know?
So online, I want people to think about their computers and how their phones, their iPads, it's an open window. It's exactly what it is. That's how people can get into all of your information. We have privacy settings, we have different things, but none of them are 100% foolproof. So you always want to treat online as an open window. For your children, I always tell them that, and parents like this more than the kids do, the Constitution doesn't apply to anybody that lives under my roof. I know what my child's password is. I know how to get into their cell phone. If they want to get on the computer, they're going to do it in an area that I'm around, and I can just walk up, look over their shoulder, and see what they're doing. That's a good thing to know about your kids, because if you don't, they're going to get influenced by other people that aren't so trustworthy and end up in a lot of trouble with some of the things that happen there. So the second one, you want to look for HTTPS. That means it's more of a secured line to go into something to buy from.
That's the address of the website.
Yeah, the address of the website, because that actually shows that it's actually a secured website. You want to make sure anything that comes in your emails or some offers that you get is correctly spelled. A lot of the ones that come from overseas will not be spelled correctly. So you can kind of tell, hey, this doesn't seem quite right. There's just a lot of things out there that you really want to investigate before you actually make that purchase and give up your credit card information.
Yeah.
And then remember, nobody's going to ask you a legitimate place, your bank, anybody like that. They're not going to call you up on the phone or talk to you online, send you an email and say, hey, somebody hacked into your account. Can you give us your account number so we can fix it?
Yeah.
They already know it. So if they're asking you for it, that means they don't know it. And that means it's a scam, and don't do it. So even if you got, again, that little feeling inside your head, you know what, something about this doesn't seem right, delete it and get out of there and go somewhere else.
Absolutely. We gotta remember that utilities and the IRS and all of these people do not call for money. And if
Right.
And if a utility calls, call them on the number that you have. This is the practice I have. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. Nobody, there's no one, including us. I mean, we don't accept gift cards from Apple for a warrant request. We don't call people on the phone and tell them they have a warrant, but if you send us some money, we'll let you go. If you have a warrant from us, you'll know, because we'll be knocking on your door. Yeah. There's nothing like that, Edison, or I kind of dated myself, I think, DTE.
DTE, yes.
Yeah, they're not going to ask you for a gift card to pay your utility bill. Again, there's a lot of things that happen with law enforcement or policing. The taxpayer already provides my bulletproof vest. They already buy my uniforms. They buy my car. They buy everything that I need to do my job. If somebody calls up and says the state police is running out of money, they need bulletproof vests, call a post or call somebody that you're already, the taxpayer is already paying for all that. You don't need to supplement that. And if you have a question about it, and there are some great organizations out there, the Police Memorial Fund, things like that. But I always ask them, instead of doing it over the phone, I ask them to send me something in the mail. Just
Ab-
send me a flyer in the mail that I can actually look at, read it, understand it, and decide for myself if this is something that I really want to donate to. And then that's how you kind of go around that.
Absolutely. It's unfortunately elderly people get preyed on the most. I heard of a couple cases where people pose at utility workers and they come to the door.
Mhm.
And we always tell people, call the utility and verify that somebody is from them and is at the door. It's unfortunate.
And that's the saddest part, because our elderly our community, they're more trustworthy than us.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
believe that everybody's good, and if somebody comes up and says, hey, I'm from DTE, I'm just coming to check on your electrical system, or I want to go in the back, or I want to do that, they want to take them for their word. And unfortunately, the criminals know that too, and that's why they kind of prey on our elderly community. But we remind them that they all got to have an ID card. It's going to be very, very rare that somebody's just going to show up on your door from a utility and ask you to do something. They're going to call in advance, or they're going to, send you something. I just had some trees trimmed in my backyard, and I got like 3 letters,
Yeah.
a phone call, and then the person finally showed up on my front door, and I still check their ID. So that's the best way to go about it. Is we, unfortunately, these days we have to be a little bit more skeptical than we'd like to be.
Absolutely. Is there anything I haven't asked you that people need to know as far as security concerns?
I just want to remind people that we talk about it a lot during the holidays, but these are all great ideas year round. The number one, again, and I know I've ridden this horse to death, is to be vigilant and know what's happening around you. If you do that year round, you're predominantly going to be pretty safe everywhere that you go. Don't be afraid to call law enforcement if you think something doesn't seem quite right. And then finally, it's been a rough couple of years. Enjoy the holiday season with your family and your friends, and whatever you do, don't get behind the wheel impaired.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Cha. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and happy holidays to you and your family.
Thank you. Same to you.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.